my name is Sarah Garfield and I'm sitting here with Kaplan. He was so kind to allow me to interview him. Mr. Kaplan, before we talk about your military service, let's get a little background information. Where did your family immigrate from and who came to America?
The Kaplan family immigrated from a small town in Belarus, which was also called White Russia. And the town is called Kaplan. It's on the western side of Russia, very close to the Polish border. So depending upon who did what to who, occasionally they spoke Polish, but mostly they spoke Russian. And the person that came was my great-grandfather, Rabbi Moshe Yehuda Kaplan, and his Rebbetzin, Kasha Fredo Kaplan, with 6 children in 1908.
Tell us a little bit about yourself from when you were born to when you joined the service.
That's 19 years, right? So I was born so well that my mother didn't have any other children. Okay, that's a little joke, but it's true. I lived on the Lower East Side. I went to Harav Hagon Reb Moshe Feinstein's yeshiva my entire life. So I was there till about 17 when I graduated. I was accepted to lots of schools, but we were poor. So being poor, there was no such thing as Wharton or Brown or any of the Ivy Leagues.
Yeah.
So I went to the City College of New York, in particular to the Bernard M. Baruch School, which was separate from the Uptown campus. And that was the poor man's Wharton. So everybody that went there already had decided that they're going to be a businessman or a business leader. And I had two majors, one in political science and the other one in accounting. And we did all the required courses of marketing and management and statistics and all that good stuff. We were required to wear a suit and tie every day to school. Vietnam was going strong, and I was in school, so I had a deferment, but I didn't feel it was equitable for me to be sitting in college while my generational colleagues, who they were not my community. I was still an Orthodox Jew, but I felt I had an obligation to serve the country that was so good to my family. So I enlisted.
Who were your biggest influences as a young man?
My great-grandfather, my grandparents, and and Reb Moshe's family, his son Reb David, his son Reb Ruvain, the Tendlers, and virtually everybody that was a teacher in the yeshiva of MTJ.
Is there any history in your family of people serving in the armed forces, and did all of them make it back alive?
We have a great history. You might not be aware of this, but during World War II, where there was still a limited Jewish population in America, now they say we've got 7 million, maybe halachically we have 5 million, I'm not sure. But in the 40s, it was much smaller. 500,000 Jewish males volunteered for service during World War II. 33,000 of them did not return. None of that was my family. I had many uncles and cousins who all volunteered, and they all returned.
Why did you decide to join, and did your family support you?
My family didn't know. I didn't ask them permission.
Okay.
I was 19. I'm a grown man.
So you did it on your own?
I did it on my own. I came home and told them what I did. And they said, okay, let's get you home safe and sound.
And how old were you? 19?
19.
Were you an officer or an enlisted man, and can you explain the difference?
Enlisted men are designated private first class, corporal, various sergeants, all the way up to command sergeant major, or even sergeant major of the Army. They have certain roles, but most of the roles are limited leadership. So a sergeant, a three-stripe sergeant will command 3 or 4 people. A 4-stripe sergeant, 3 up, 1 down, will command 10 people. Another one will not command, but be responsible for logistical stuff for maybe 40 people. Officers, as low as second lieutenant, which is an 01, all the way up to 4-star general or 5-star general, will command 40 and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people. So I put myself on the career path to command 40 and up to hundreds of people. And in fact, in my year of deployment, I had an opportunity to command 450 men while I was 22 years old.
And could have some of them been older than you?
Most of them, at least 50%, were older than me. The only ones that were younger were the privates and the enlisted. Yeah.
What years did you serve and where?
Service began in Service began in 67 and it ended in 71.
Okay.
And the first 2 years was while I was still at home in college. And after I graduated, I was immediately assigned to Fort Benning, Georgia. And then from Fort Benning, Georgia, I was assigned to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And I was assigned to Indiantown Gap in Pennsylvania. And then on deployment, I was immediately assigned to the 2nd Infantry Division, 3rd Brigade, 23rd Battalion, which was stationed in a combat zone in the DMZ of Korea. And that's where I stayed most of the time.
That was how many years?
That was 1 year.
In all 1 year, that's all the places you went?
No. I when I became an officer, it was for 2 years, 1 year in the States, 1 year overseas.
Okay. Tell us about what occurred between when you joined the Army until you went to active service.
When you join the Army, you are in active service.
Like when you were in college also?
I was on active service. So
like
every day I wore a uniform. During the college campus riots, I'm walking around with an Army uniform and a yarmulke, which was pretty interesting.
And then they were rioting against.
And during weekends, they took me, I had to spend the weekend many times on active service with the Army in training. And during the summers, I was at basic training. And then the following summer, I was in active infantry training. So when you're in the Army, unless you're just totally involved in school for a PhD or a master's, you're on active duty all the time.
Oh, I didn't know. As a Jew, like you've mentioned, there were many things that make your daily life and daily routine that is very different from any other religion or ethnicity. What kinds of challenges or barriers did you encounter as a Jew while serving?
None.
Really?
None. You could daven with tefillin every day. The army couldn't care less. You could try to obtain kosher food, and they'll help you. But it's not kosher food like your sister makes for you for Shabbos. Okay?
Okay.
It's Horowitz margarine cans that's supplied by the Jewish Welfare Board and sent to Jews at their request. Now it gets difficult. How do you cook the can? Where's the facility? What do? Do you just open up the can and eat everything cold? You know? But the army's not stopping you. The army's letting you do what you need to do. So while I was in training, I would run ahead of my company to the mess hall. I koshered a pot. I opened the Horowitz margarine can. I dumped it in the pot. I asked the guy that's standing there to make sure the pot didn't burn. I went back outside. I stood in line with my company. I did what you had to do before you go to the mess hall, various exercises. I got to the mess hall. I stood on line. They gave me a potato. They gave me a vegetable. They gave me a salad. Then that other guy put my kosher food on my army tray.
Did it burn ever?
Mostly not.
Wow.
They were careful. I ate. I went back into the kitchen. I washed my pot. I put my pot away so I knew where it was and they didn't touch it for the next meal.
Did it ever make you late to anything?
Always late. And I was punished for being late.
What was your punishment?
My punishment was, as soon as I walked out of the mess hall and my feet hit the ground, which you can't have punishment in the mess hall.
Okay.
There was a sergeant standing there, and he requested 75 push-ups. So I did 75 push-ups.
How often?
For 3 meals a day, for 6 to 8 weeks in a row, 2 different summers.
And you never could explain yourself?
He couldn't care less. And by the way, he knew I was a Jew, and he was delighted to share his physical motivation with me at that moment in time.
Wow. Did your identity as a Jew ever come into conflict with your role as a soldier?
Never. Never. But...
So people under you never looked down?
Well, the people under me had no choice. They had to keep their mouths shut.
Okay.
Okay. The people over me had no choice because they were all really good people. Occasionally, a colleague, a so-called colleague, came up to me and said, I don't like Jews. I said, that's your problem. If they persisted, we finalized the argument with some physical activity.
So you got into fights with...
I didn't get into any fights. I ended fights in quick manner. And then they had a different opinion, or at least they no longer voiced their opinion to me. Shabbos was the most difficult part. When I was an officer, predominantly, I was able to have a rotation where I wasn't on a combat patrol. So I was somewhere on base. I was still doing my leadership roles, but I hadn't to do anything that was directly Machal Shabbos. As a trainee, it was very difficult because they do stuff Shabbos and Sunday, but certainly Shabbos. So if there was a drive with a truck, I'd tell them that I would walk. So I got up earlier and I walked. But by walking, there's no Erev. So I wasn't allowed to I couldn't take my rifle, I couldn't take my backpack, and I couldn't carry water. But when you're training, you need water. So my buddies took my stuff for me on the truck. And then they gave it to me at the location. And the sergeants let him get away with it. And going home, we did the same thing in reverse. If it was a 6-mile walk or 7-mile walk, it wasn't an issue. The issue was, when it was 20 miles, I was never gonna make it to a 20-mile walk.
So what did you do?
I got on the truck. In Usbreda. I told them I'm not shooting guns on Shabbos.
And they said?
Mostly they let me get away with it.
Okay.
Not completely.
You'd have to do more push-ups?
When you shoot a gun in the army, it's not for fun. They're training you to kill people.
Right.
Part of the training.
You mentioned the welfare board, the Jewish welfare board that gave you kings. Is there anything else that they did to help you?
0.
So just food?
Just food. Most of the chaplains were not Orthodox. The chaplain in Seoul, Korea was Orthodox. So he found out that there's an Orthodox Jew in a combat zone on the DMZ, and he had never been there. So he came to visit. And he wanted to take pictures with me, and on my Jeep, it said Shalom. Every Jeep had some, little silly saying. Mine was Shalom.
In English or Hebrew?
Hebrew had I done it in Hebrew, I'm talking to myself.
Oh, true.
By writing it in English, at least,
Yeah, someone could catch
they
it.
could say, what's Shalom? And he brought me a case of Horowitz Margaret and food the first time he came up. The second time he came up, I had just received a package from my mother, which was a 3-foot long salami. She sent me one every month.
Wow.
But it didn't come Federal Express. It didn't come UPS. Actually, Federal Express didn't even exist. It came by boat and by truck. So what does a salami look like in a package after 3 or 4 weeks in the hold of a boat? Pick it up, it's green, it's moldy, it's slimy, and it's oozing. That's what the salami looked like.
Did you ever tell your mother, or you just accepted it and didn't?
Oh, I love that salami.
You ate it?
I'm about to tell you how I ate it.
Okay.
When you get a package in the army, everybody celebrates because everybody shares their packages.
Yes.
So they found out I got a package, and I'm living in a Quonset hut with maybe 10 or 12 guys. Not so bad. And we each have our little cubicle, a bed, a desk.
Yeah.
We each had a stove because it's very, very cold there. Very cold. And the stove is a gasoline can.
Okay.
So you gotta pump the gasoline can, it lights the fire, and you have a stove and you're warm. So they all came to see the package. I opened it up and I picked up the salami, and they were horrified. And they said to me, "What is that, Cap?" I said, "That's Jew food." They ran away. I took the salami to the bathroom.
Okay.
I had a rag, I had soap, and I washed off the whole outside casing.
Okay.
Now, it's a shiny new salami.
Okay.
I went back to my cubicle. I took out one of my sharp knives. I cut the salami. And I had a frying pan.
Yeah.
And I had eggs. And I put the frying pan with a little bit of oil. I cracked some eggs, put it in the frying pan, and I throw in slices of salami, and I'm making salami and eggs in my cubicle.
Did they come back and ask for some?
All of a sudden, there's a wonderful aroma drifting throughout the entire Quonset hut. I had a lineup. The salami was gone in 20 minutes. Everybody had salami and eggs. From that point on, any package that I got, particularly when I was on a combat patrol, was already opened and perhaps digested before I even got back.
Wow.
Including the rabbi. He showed up to visit and he went home with pieces of that salami.
From Korea?
From Korea.
Was the community, the Jewish community in Korea just the rabbi, or was there a bigger community?
No, there were Jewish soldiers stationed, not in the combat zone. In the combat zone, there were two of us, me and the doctor.
The doctor was Jewish?
The doctor was Jewish. From 1,500 men, there were two Jews, me and the doctor. South of the combat zone, there were other Jewish soldiers, but I only got to see them with another story. But on Pesach, I went to Seoul for a Seder by this rabbi. He invited me. So I figured, what's the Seder going to be? 10 of us, 20 of us, maybe 30 of us, right? I mean, really? There were 800 people at the Seder. The Israeli community came to the army, and businessmen from all over the world who were doing business in Korea all attended the Army Seder, both nights.
What about the other high holidays, or like Shabbos?
Well, there were two stories about Shabbos. One story was I'm davening Shabbos by myself. There's no minyan.
Yeah.
There's me. So it's a problem, but at least I'm davening.
Yes.
The second story is a much nicer story. We had a change of command. And the battalion commander, the new one, was a Jewish man from India who became a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. He had a tradition from his grandfathers and great-grandfathers that when Britain ruled India, they were part of the British Army in India. So when he immigrated to America, he joined the US Army. He requested Friday night services. And I got him a minyan every Friday night where I was the leader of the services. So Friday night we had a minyan. How many people in that minyan knew how to read Hebrew? Maybe two. I'm sure of two. I don't know about the others. But at least they were there to say Amen.
Yeah.
So it worked. For Purim, my uncle, Moran Harav Hagon Ruven Feinstein, sent me a Megillah. And I got permission to shoot M16s on full auto with the entire minyan for all of Haman. Wow. So I read the Megillah, and when Haman came, we all unloaded a full 20-round magazine throughout the entire Megillah.
That's a lot of magazines.
That's a lot of noise. A lot of noise. So we, had a little bit of fun.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little more about your service in Korea, DMZ? Did you know you were going to be deployed to Korea when you joined?
I was initially going to be deployed to Vietnam. I was a fully qualified infantry officer ready to take command in a combat zone. And there weren't enough lieutenants qualified for the active duty war that was going on in Vietnam. So I didn't think anything other than I'm going to Vietnam. But what they recommended you do is they wanted you to visit the U.S. Army headquarters career branch for officers, which is a great big building in Washington, only for infantry officers. So as a young man, you go in and you sit with the lieutenant colonel, infantry, and they put you on a career path because they want you to stay in. So I met this lieutenant colonel, and he had many ribbons and combat infantryman awards, and he was a good guy. And he says, okay, what do you want? I said, you're asking me what I want? He said, yeah. I said, well, I would like to be assigned to the embassy in Tel Aviv. I speak Yiddish, I speak Hebrew, I know the culture, I get along with most of the people in Israel. I'd be a good asset for the US government, the US Army. He said, I agree with you, but it's only for majors and colonels. You're too young.
Okay.
He said, but I can assign you to Saudi Arabia. You want to go to the Middle East? You will be training the Saudi Arabian soldiers on how to become infantrymen. And I knew in my brain I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to say no. He turned the page of my portfolio, my record. He said, oh, you're Jewish? I go, yeah. He said, well, you can't go to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And then I was astonished. What do you mean, sir? I'm qualified. He said, oh, you're qualified, but you're a Jew.
Yeah.
So the American government has a deal with the king of Saudi Arabia. No Jews, no blacks. Now this is coming from a non-black sworn officer, lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, speaking to another sworn officer of the United States Army, telling me that our government has a policy to discriminate against all Jews and all blacks in the U.S., in the service, not just Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines.
Yeah.
I said, really? He said, absolutely. And it's still today.
Wow. But only for Saudi Arabia.
They have soldiers. They need to be trained.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to Saudi Arabia. So then he said, you know what? I'm sending you to Korea. We don't have enough lieutenants there. And I didn't realize how much activity in terms of combat opportunities there were in Korea. But I found out.
Wow.
And it's cold. So you're lying in a frozen rice paddy, which has been fertilized by 1,000 years of human feces. They don't have chemicals. They go to the bathroom and they save it. And there's a guy that runs around all of Korea and distributes the feces to the farmers that are growing rice.
Okay.
So I'm in that frozen rice paddy, or worse, unfrozen rice paddy, okay? And the winds are coming out of Mongolia, and it's minus 30 degrees. And I'm lying there for 2-3 days at a time. Very unpleasant. But that's what happens when you're infantry. You don't get to pick and choose and sit in a heated office with basketball trophies.
While stationed in Korea DMZ, how often was there fighting?
There were combat patrols every day. So I was in the DMZ every single day. When I wasn't on a combat patrol, my job was about 14 Jeeps with M60 machine guns mounted on the back, an armed driver and an armed person here escorting the trucks and the dignitaries to Panmunjom. And our job was to protect them from North Koreans who wanted to strafe the convoys and kill them. When I wasn't in my Jeep, I was on a foot patrol. The DMZ is no man's land. There's forests, there's rice paddies, there's heavy cover, and they would use that to infiltrate, to come into South Korea to kill other people, assassinate politicians and other people. My job was to stop them, and the North Korean soldiers was primarily their special forces, special trained assassins. So every day there was an opportunity to use your infantry skills in the most positive manner.
Can you give us a picture what the DMZ looks like, its size, and where it is, and also...
The DMZ is the 38th parallel in the world. It's the width of all of Korea. So when they decided to end the war, North Korea built a fence, and it was maybe a few miles wide, maybe 5-10 miles wide, and hundreds of miles long, and nobody could go there.
So you can't cross it?
No, you can't. If you cross it, they shoot you, and if they cross it, we shoot them. So North Koreans can't get out, and South Koreans don't want to go to North Korea, so it didn't matter. We had nobody looking to run to North Korea, you know? But North Korean people would love to go to South Korea. The North Korean army would shoot their own people. Yeah, nobody got across. At least not while I was there.
That was the battlefield before the war ended.
That was part of the battlefield. Most of Korea was the battlefield. General MacArthur got all the way to the Chinese border, to the Yalu River, until the Chinese came across with 1 million people and pushed us back. That was the Korean War. I was after the Korean War.
Oh, okay. Why was there a DMZ after the Korean War and to stop?
Because that's where the war stopped by politicians. But we knew that the North Koreans, including today, would love to conquer South Korea.
Even now?
Absolutely.
Right.
He doesn't even have to wake up. He could go to sleep and tell his army, take him. So they stationed, most of the DMZ is now patrolled by South Koreans, except that one area where I was in, where is the Uijeonbu corridor, which is the traditional invasion route, which is what they used to start the Korean War. So my battalion was going to be subjected to 90 to 95% casualties. In other words, we all get killed, so America sends reinforcements. That was the plan.
What was a typical day while you were deployed?
Winter or summer?
Both.
Winter, you get up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
What time do you go to bed?
10, if you're lucky, maybe 11.
Oh, so you no sleep at all.
You're in the infantry.
You didn't take shifts, like people slept and then some people worked.
No, that's when you're in the zone on patrol, you rotate the men on and off. But when you're on base, everybody goes with the same clock.
Okay.
Because everybody's mission starts at the same time. So you get up. I do what Jewish males do. You get dressed really warm. In order to wash in the morning, you broke the icicles off the faucet. There was no hot water. And so you wash your face, you wash your hands. Every now and then you have to take a shower, which was an experience all by itself. In any event, you go to breakfast, which is hot. You drink coffee. You put on your combat stuff. You go to battalion headquarters. They assign you your mission of the day, and the day begins. The men have lunch, not always hot food. And then virtually at the end of the day, everybody comes back to base, except if you're on patrol, and you have a hot supper, maybe 1 or 2 hours for yourself, and you start the next day all over again.
And then in the summer?
In the summer...
Was it hot or still cold?
It was very hot.
Oh, okay.
Very hot, very hot, very hot. Humid. It's basically New York temperature. Seoul and New York are on the same parallel. The water was warmer. Still not hot, but warmer.
Okay.
No icicles, which was pleasant. And then everything else is the same. In the winter, you worried about frostbite and hypothermia and not being able to even pull the trigger. In the summer, you worried about mosquitoes and snakes and wood lice and assorted other horrible creatures.
Did you ever have like not enough water, like dehydration, because it's really hot?
Well, yeah, but you carry 5 canteens.
Oh, okay.
And you eat salt pills. You have to eat a salt pill twice a day. Otherwise, you collapse right there. It's hot. And, you're not in short sleeves. You're down to here. You've got a steel pot on. You've got 80 pounds on your back. You've got your rifle, combat boots. It's not a walk on Malibu Beach.
But in the winter, is your clothes like warm enough for you, or you're still cold?
You're always cold.
You're always cold.
So I went to bed with thermal underwear, with a wool uniform, okay? 2 pairs of socks, 2 or 3 blankets, inside a sleeping bag, on top of my bed, with 2 blankets thrown on top of the sleeping bag.
And you were still cold.
And I was still cold. And if I bunked with some older warrant officers who were not senior to me, but older than me, they wouldn't get out of bed until I did and pumped up the stove to get the fire going again. That's how cold it was.
Wow. I read there was a wall or barrier that was being built at the DMZ around 1965. Was it completed during your service in Korea, and can you describe this wall?
Well, if the wall you're referring to is the first impediment to get into the DMZ from the U.S. side, it's more of a barbed wire wall. It's strands and strands and strands of steel posts, heavily barbed wired, going up maybe 15 feet, all the way even down
Like in the
and even barbed wire under the ground. So if somebody had a chance to dig under, they hit barbed wire.
Okay.
Yeah. The walls in Hamlin John were just basically the walls of the buildings. But the North Koreans were very strange. We would have a building that had a ceiling of 10 feet. And it was a usable building, you know. You have a desk, you walk in, the dignitaries are there. They built a building that was 20 feet high. But it wasn't a building. It was just a facade, like a Hollywood prop. So the minute you walked through that little door, there was nothing on the other side. But they saved face by having something higher than what we had. And that was important to them. That was important to them. I thought this was this great big beautiful building that they built on their side. Not a chance. It was a wall that they decorated like a building, and you walk through and it was empty.
I also read that there were unwritten rules on what type of weapons that you are allowed to be used in the DMZ after the war, and that both sides agreed upon it. Is it true?
Everybody agreed and nobody listened.
Okay.
I carried an M16. I carried a .45 caliber pistol. I carried an M79 grenade launcher. We had M60 machine guns, okay? We didn't have big time artillery pieces in the DMZ, but we had it 5 miles down the road. So if we needed artillery, we could just call it up. If we needed jet airplanes, we had an air base in Busan or somewhere near there. We had jet airplanes in Japan, and we had battleships in the Sea of Japan or right outside Korea. So God forbid they decided to invade, within moments they would be pulverized with all this heavy stuff.
They would also use the same.
Oh, and we also had 50 caliber machine guns on the DMZ. And they had the same thing.
Okay.
It wasn't that we were cheating and they weren't. They probably were cheating even more than we were cheating.
Okay. Tell us about the accommodations for the servicemen at the DMZ. I read a 1959 newspaper article that describes that there were gymnasiums, clubs, like bowling alleys and swimming pools. Is that usual?
Well, wherever you read that, I wasn't there. I missed it all. Now, it could be true in Seoul, Korea, in the capital.
Okay.
It could be true maybe a little bit in division headquarters. But the battalions that were stationed on the DMZ, we were living in Quonset huts that maybe were there since World War II and not upgraded. Windows were broken, the walls were thin, there's no insulation. We were hot and cold all the time. There were no private bathrooms. Now, the enlisted men had a small facility where they could have a beer or buy some alcohol off duty.
Yeah.
The officers had something similar. Maybe they could get a hamburger. Maybe the officers could get a hamburger. No gourmet meals, no steaks, right? Okay? Yeah, that existed. No bowling alleys, no concert halls, none of that stuff. Not anywhere near the DMZ.
Okay. You were already serving in 1969. Did you happen to catch on TV when the government televised the CBS Vietnam War Draft Lottery broadcast footage? And was there one reason that you joined the Army the way you did was because you had more control of how you were being deployed?
Well, your second answer is the better one.
Okay.
I already had a draft number when I joined in 1967. When you're 18 years old, you go to selective service. You register. So theoretically, they already know who you are. They don't wait for you. You show up. And if you don't show up, you're in trouble. So I showed up. So theoretically, at any point from the time I was 18, they could have drafted me. They didn't need a big ceremony. All they needed to do was send me a letter. Come. That's it. You're done. But I did have a college deferment. So as long as they knew I was in college, they weren't going to send me that letter. But the minute I stopped college, that letter was coming. But it made no difference to me anyway, because I volunteered. So I didn't stay up nights worrying about my draft number.
Okay.
It was a moot issue for me. Didn't affect my life.
Got it. After the Korean War, Korea was split into two countries, the North and the South.
Yeah.
There were prisoners on both sides. Those who decided not to go back to their homeland were put in the DMZ and were given 90 days to reconsider. I read that 23 Americans decided to stay in North Korea, and they denounced Americans. The one of the soldiers' mothers thought that her son was brainwashed. Senator McCarthy branded them as traitors. I also read that there were many North Koreans and Chinese who decided not to return to the North. What are your thoughts about the soldiers staying in North Korea?
If you were an American citizen and you grew up as a normal American and you had complete controls of all of your faculties, it's almost impossible to believe that you would want to stay in North Korea. I don't know any of those individuals. I won't besmirch their reputation. If they were soldiers in the army, they were, not of my time, but I respected their service. So I have no idea. And I don't know if any of that could be true, but what I know about North Korea, what I learned about the North Korean people, what I learned about the people that were in charge of the North Korean people, not a chance.
Okay.
I'm just amazed that any North Korean or Chinese communist prisoner of war would elect to go back. And the only reason was that they would know that their family would be killed. That's it.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is look at the night sky today. So go online and look at the night sky over Korea. South Korea is lit up like a Hollywood. North Korea is pitch black. That tells you everything you need to know.
Okay. What awards did you get, and for what reason?
There's something called fake valor, and I don't subscribe to that. People make up stories about themselves. But I will tell you about one award only, and I received others.
Okay.
In the U.S. Army, there's something called a combat infantryman's badge. That basically, if you're in active combat, you earned it. But even if you're around combat and you hear gunshots, maybe they give you that award too. All right? It's a beautiful award. You wear it over here.
Yeah.
And during the Vietnam era, lots of people earned it. Lots of people died for it. But a whole bunch of people got it by sitting in their office with some shenanigans. I did something dramatically different because the U.S. Army was not handing out combat infantryman's badges to anybody in Korea. It was a policy. They gave us something else, but I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But the award that I do want to tell you about is called Expert Infantryman's Badge. It looks the same, but you
Natalie Ori or Oriana.
you don't get it awarded. You earn it. Now, how do you earn it? You have a 3-day exam. And I was part of the division with 15,000 men. And they gave us an opportunity to take this 3-day exam. And it's not a law school exam. You don't sit in an office. You're map reading, you're in the hills, you're shooting, you're running, you're doing all sorts of infantry stuff. You're disassembling weapons, putting it back. You've got an 18-mile march in so many hours. You're doing infantry stuff. Mm-hmm. I think a few hundred took the exam, maybe as many as 1,000, I'm not sure. 12 were awarded from that division.
And you're one of them?
I was one of them.
Wow.
And I think from my battalion, there might have been one other guy out of 1,500. So I'm pretty proud of that award. And I wear it every Shabbos.
You still have it?
Yeah.
And your other ones that?
So now the award that I did get, called a badge, is I was awarded the IMGIM Scout Badge, which was awarded for successful operational missions inside the DMZ. Those are the two I'll talk about.
Okay. Do you remember the American protests of the Vietnam War, and did you see it in person?
I saw it for 2 years while I was in college. I walked right by them. They had every single right to protest against war.
Yeah.
They don't want to die. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Not everybody has to go to the army. They had no right to support Ho Chi Minh
Nathan Ferrisman.
and the Vietnam North Vietnamese army because they were our enemies and they were killing fellow American citizens. And that was disturbing. And what was particularly disturbing, that I still have a grudge to this day, was Jane Fonda going to North Vietnam, sitting behind an anti-aircraft gun, which shot down hundreds of American airplanes, and we lost thousands of pilots, either dead or prisoners of war. And she sat in that chair for publicity purposes, making believe that she would be shooting at American airplanes. If she walked into this office right now, I'd slap her in the face. She was a traitor. And she still is.
Okay.
So Jane, if you ever see this video, come visit me in my office.
Did you meet any famous people in the army that we know?
The most famous person I met was General Westmoreland, who turned out to be the overall commander of the entire Army Air Force during Vietnam. He met me while I was training at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Why was he there? Do you know why he was there?
Well, he was a general,
Okay.
and he was visiting all the new lieutenants in Fort Benning. And I was one of them that were privileged to shake his hand. He was a warrior.
Wow.
had they listened to him, we would have conquered North Vietnam.
Thank you.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Are we done? Thank you very